Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Jason Chan, it is so wonderful to be here. Thank you very much.
So, I wanted to have you on the show because, as you know, we do a lot of trial work. And one of the things that is paramount for trial work is essentially witness testimony. It might not be a situation where you have someone who really talked in public for the first time, but a lot of times it is, right? So, what are
Mhm.
some of the tips that you have for a person to speak publicly in front of a jury in terms of credibility? How do they come across as credible?
Right, right. Thanks so much for that question. Speaking and communicating, even when you're not in a jury trial situation, Jason, as we know, is stressful. So when you're in a situation like that, I think the first thing you can do is ask yourself how your body's feeling. The question to ask is, does my body feel constricted or does it feel more expanded? And I don't know about you, but when I get nervous, because don't we all get nervous from time to time, my shoulders hunch, my fists are more apt to be clenched. So if you answer that question, my body's feeling more constricted as opposed to more expanded, start simply by breathing. You might want to put your feet flat on the floor, nice straight spine, shoulders back and down. And instead of taking your arms and folding them, open them up. Okay, open them up, and that opens the thoracic section of your body, which includes your heart and your lungs. And then do some nice, deep, what we call diaphragmatic breaths, maybe
Mm.
6 or 7 seconds in through the nose. And they're diaphragmatic because when you are inhaling, your belly is extending. And when your belly is extending, what's happening is the bottom of your lungs are hitting the top of your diaphragm, and that's a natural relaxation technique.
Oh.
So do that a couple of times, obviously, before you get on, if possible. And yes, when you are there, when you're sitting there, ask yourself the question, constricted or expanded? And if you feel constricted, do some nice, deep diaphragmatic breaths. I think that's at least where it starts.
So, Donald, and even before that, what is it about public speaking or speaking in front of other people that make people so nervous?
Oh, there are many, many different reasons. More times than not, Jason, I think people are really concerned with the fact that when you say public, more times than not, it's a lot of people, right? You have the judge up here, you
Right.
have the jury over there, you have quite a few people actually looking at you. So, what I recommend people do in that particular case is to focus on one person. For
Okay.
example, if it's the lawyer posing the questions, just focus on that one person and try really to black out the folks who are behind the person posing the question. Years ago I was in broadcasting and there was a simple rule, and that was just talk to one person. Instead of going on the air and saying something like, well, how is everybody today? You'd always talk in first person. You'd always
Right.
talk about you. How are you doing today? So do your best, again, to just speak with one person, give that one person eye contact, and do your best to really what we call, ground yourself and get present in the moment, right here, right now, with that one person, and again, speak in first person.
Yeah, those are great tips just to start off. And then while the testimony is going on, how does a person stay focused and calm? And what are some of the cues that you can give them to come across as being honest and credible in front of another person?
Mm-hmm. Every case is different, as we know. Some are more emotional than others. If you do feel emotion coming on, again, do your best to ground yourself, feet flat on the floor. You also might want to take your hands and hold the arms of your chair. Or if you're lucky enough to have a pen in your hand, take it and actually put some pressure on that pen. Or take your feet and ground them into the floor. And that, again, will ground you and will help. If you're feeling a little shaky, that might give you some support. And a lot of people, Jason, and I'm sure you've experienced this in years past, they feel as though it's not okay to be emotional. And I believe it is okay to be emotional. And also, a lot of people feel as though they need to always speak, right? Like there's something wrong with silence. And there's nothing wrong with silence. In fact, there's everything right with silence. So just know that it's more than fine to speak and then stop and collect your thoughts for 2 or 3 seconds and speak again and then stop and collect your thoughts. I call it standing in your powerful silence. Silence, as we know, it can be uncomfortable. So that might be something you might want to practice prior to actually having to go up and out there. Again, do your best to anticipate the opportunity to stand in your silence and then practice actually finishing up whatever it is you're going to say and then stand in your powerful silence.
Wow, those are fantastic tips, Donna. Now, let me ask you about we talked about the to-dos. What about the things to avoid?
Speaking too quickly,
Mm-hmm.
feeling as though you have to give too much, not knowing when to wrap and stand in your powerful silence, and also, Jason, not speaking directly. You know, there are what we call direct communicators and indirect communicators. Aristotle, 23 years ago, discussed this phenomenon, as a matter of fact. You can Google it, you can read about it. And it's called inductive and deductive communication skills, or patterns of reasoning. And he realized, even then, a couple of thousand years ago, that there were those of us who were more inductive and those of us who were more deductive. Now, when you're a deductive communicator, you're much more apt to answer a question by getting to the point and following that with the details. When you're more inductive, you start with the details and you're much more colorful. And what you're doing is you're painting a picture for someone because you feel as though you need to paint a picture for them. And then slowly but surely and eventually, and shall I say, hopefully, get to the point. But I believe when you're in a situation, certainly in a courtroom situation, it's much better to practice, right? Because we're practicing, we're doing our best to prepare for these moments by preparing for the questions, by getting to the point, short, sweet, condense, followed by the details, as opposed to starting with the details and then eventually and slowly but surely getting to the point.
Wow, I mean, the way that you break it down is just really top notch and next level. This is really humbling to hear. Now, Donna, can I ask you, when should people contact you? I have your email on here. I have your website so they can go and search about you. When's the best time to talk to Donna and make that connection with you?
Well, anytime you're struggling, speaking or communicating clearly, I not only do one-on-one coaching for folks, I also do group training for companies, especially those leaders and those emerging leaders who not only have to communicate upstream, but also communicate downstream and communicate peer-to-peer, and very often communicate externally as well, so internally and externally. And, we all struggle in